I don't think Aiden Hill is going to get the Conn Smythe. And I think I'm not trying to take anything away from him and his performance. It's been really strong, quite obviously. He is not the story in this series after 2 games. It's about the Vegas scoring and what they've done on Bobrovsky. And as you mentioned, the high danger chances. And he wasn't a story before this series. People weren't saying it was because of Aiden Hill. Sure, part of it because he's the winning goalie, but nowhere near the level of Bobrovsky. And I feel like he's getting talked up right now because people are saying, well, let's look at the other goaltender over on the Vegas side. It's been about the scoring. And for me, it's going to be about which player on Vegas outside of the goalie is going to win it. And it's interesting because Eichel still has the lead on the Knights side for points in the playoffs. He has 22. Marchessault one back. But there's a big gap at MGM with the Conn Smythe odds. It's Marchessault minus 105, Eichel plus 500. Marchessault has 2 more goals than anyone else on Vegas. Like that's where the gap is, because the majority of Eichel's points have come via the assist. Carlson is 2 back of Marchessault. So I'm totally with Marchessault being the favorite now. That was a big jump. I want to say yesterday it was around plus 450. But
plus 425.
That's a wide.
Like that. Yeah.
That's a wide margin. That's a wide margin after a 3-point game for a guy that still does not lead the team in points.
The betting market in these best of sevens, which are, you need to kind of just look at them as their own entities, are it'll only react to what we've seen, which is we've only seen 2 games and we've only seen 2 Vegas wins. But that doesn't mean that game 3 the Panthers don't come out and just put on a clinic. So one win for Florida all of a sudden swings the narrative back, and for the next couple of days all we'll hear about is how well Vegas has played and that Florida has lost its composure a bit, and maybe the Magic's rubbed off on Florida. But that changes with a 2-0 lead for the Panthers early in game 3. So I do think Florida is still live here. 4-1 is interesting. I think that if you're going to bet the Panthers to win game 3, you might as well take a chunk of that, or like I said, the Bobrovsky Conn Smythe future as well. But yeah, I don't think that you can count this team out at all. They're a feisty bunch, and Bobrovsky has shown that he can get not just hot, but world-beating hot on a moment's notice.
In the short term, long term, the U.S. Open's coming up. Does this change kind of how you're going to look at betting on these tournaments?
I mean, of course, with these new added guys that that are going to be in the events. I mean, all the top guys who won majors and live, they can play for the next few years, prior to this. But we're going to be able to see basically, depending on how they do the rankings and how they qualify for majors, we're going to be seeing the majority of all these guys back into play when it comes to majors. And of course, with more skill level, more great players, it's going to make it tougher to pick. This year it hasn't been easy just because on the PGA Tour, so many of the top guys have won each event, and it's tough putting numbers like 12-1, 8-1, 7-1, betting on those guys on a week in, week out basis. If you have, you've probably been winning money. I guess the one thing this could do is make the odds a little bit better for us when it comes to bets, because you can't have 20 people 30-1 or under, and when you bring that talent back to the PGA Tour, it's going to have to expand the odds a little bit, and maybe we can get some in our favor.
Knew this was going to happen, right? It was going to take time for cooler heads to prevail, but wow, is this not a big win for LIV? Because people laughed at them. They called them a joke for so long. They don't like the style of play. But what they did is they built a top-heavy roster, and they brought in the names that people want to see. From week to week, people want to see Brooks Koepka, Dustin Johnson, Conn Smythe, another guy that's over the last couple of years become one of the best golfers in the world. Like him or not, and I'm unlike many in this sense. I like watching Patrick Reed play. I like that he plays the villain. I think golf needs a little bit of that. I like that in sports. Another guy that people love to hate, Bryson DeChambeau. It's Phil and company got exactly what they wanted. And I'm curious to see what kind of details are in this deal, Kate. But a sticking point outside of the the money they were swimming in is was less golf. And I'm curious to see the star players, how much golf they're going to end up playing moving forward.
I do think there's obviously a little bit of a learning curve. I do think like, getting the information out to the players is obviously one thing, but the players actually, in a lot of ways, like ingesting it or digesting that information and really, crossing the T's and dotting the I's in a lot of scenarios and really going through what the expectation actually is, I think, probably didn't happen in every single scenario, right? Now we're kind of dealing with a little bit of a fallout. And I think, the fallout right now very much seems to be centered around this idea that players shouldn't be gambling within team premises on site or whatever. And I think, there's obviously some back and forth with how that has actually come about to be a rule. I do think there probably is, relatively reasonable, but I think there's also an expectation that these guys are, in the office or in their building or in their team building for 8 to 10 to 12 hours a day. And in a lot of ways, it's similar to me. Like if I couldn't bet in my basement or whatever, like I wouldn't be betting whatsoever in a lot of ways. So I do think there maybe is going to be a little bit of a feeling out phase between the Players Association and what the NFL actually expects. And maybe we do see some modifications to certain rules, but I very much think like everything that's happened so far, like we're not seeing, there's not going to be, maybe I have a little bit of blinders on in this scenario, but I don't think we're going to see like an NFL player throw a football game for even like $10,000 or something. Like, I don't think that's at all what's happened so far. And I don't think that's really, I would say, the greatest concern right now. I do think getting it right, getting the players and the NFL Players Association and the owners and everybody else kind of on the same page with the expectation for what gambling can and cannot happen, it is kind of the stage that we're at right now. But I think that is going to get fleshed out. And I'm not saying that we're not going to have one of those high level concerns later on, but very much I think the infractions that have happened recently, I would say don't really fit the bill of what we maybe project out on social media and Twitter.
How about the Red Sox? I'm going even money on the Red Sox. They are plus 100, and the Guardians do not hit left-handed pitching. They're 28th and on base, OPS, weighted runs created plus. And the Red Sox have a lefty going in Paxton, and they're facing Bieber. This is not the Shane Bieber of old. He doesn't strike anybody out anymore. We're talking about just over 6 Ks per 9 innings. So I'm going to back that Red Sox offense today at even money. Let's go first 5 on the Atlanta Braves. You're backing Elder, and you have a number of Braves hitters in that lineup that have crushed Carrasco over his career. Eddie Rosario, the hero from the other day, he has 3 career home runs against Carrasco. Olsen, very strong, 5 for 12, 4 extra base hits against Carrasco. So I'm going to lay the half run in the first 5, which is minus 120 on the Braves. And also going with the Rangers, first 5. I'll lay that half run at minus 110. They are hosting St. Louis. Rangers red hot, 13-3 in their last 16 games. And they smash left-handed pitching. They're number 1 in baseball and on-base percentage against lefties at .372. So Red Sox full game, Braves first 5 on the spread, Rangers first 5 on the spread.